He's pushing me too.
He needs a job. He needs a job where he can push or pull.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for our loading bar to finish to get us into YouTube.
Cool. What you're doing is mysterious to me.
Okay,
Streaming live on
here we
YouTube.
are. We are live with Chris Sanders, Jessica Steele Sanders, and Buck.
Who's down here somewhere. Hold
Buck
on.
is down here. Wait, wait.
Oh, hold on. I'll pick him up. Ooh.
There's Buck.
There's Buck.
There
He
he
says,
is.
what is
There
this?
he
What's up,
is.
Buck?
There he
What you
is.
doing,
Oh
buddy?
my goodness.
Okay. Oh, what'd you make? Oh.
Right on. So, right before we were about to get started, I was just saying it hit about 94 in my studio. So I had the AC running, just turned it off. And you were just about to tell me a story about Nicolas Cage and air conditioning.
Yes. So for the Crudes, we recorded Nicolas Cage about maybe 7 or 8 times. We never recorded him in the same place twice. The first time we recorded him was in Peter Gabriel's studio in Bath, England. And the second time was in the Bahamas. And I guess Nicolas Cage has a house there. So we flew to the Bahamas, and the whole thing was a bit mysterious because we understood that there was one recording studio that we could use, but we were no longer going to use it because the guy that owned the studio had been murdered not that long before, and the other guy that was partners with him no longer would use the studio because he was trying to just sort of lay low for a while. So we went to a house in the Bahamas, and we waited for Nicolas Cage to arrive. And the night before, we'd gone to this house and just to check the sound and stuff like that. And it was not good for sound. It had a tin roof, the rain was coming down, and it was deafening. So it was the opposite of being the right place to record, but we had to do it nonetheless. So Nicolas Cage arrived. It was a sweltering day. It was about like 110 degrees, and we had to turn every single thing off in this house that would make a sound. So we unplugged clocks, we unplugged coffee machines, and we turned off the air conditioning, and we started to record. And it was like those little boxes that they put people in, I think, in those movies about World War II when they're trying to punish them or make them talk. So we were in this little tiny room that got hotter and hotter and hotter. And pretty soon we were all just completely drenched in sweat, and we would have to take breaks to just go outside and like get oxygen again so we could go back in and continue to record. Everybody did a great job, but yeah, that was a recording session I will never forget.
Did you get any like good video of Nick Cage just sweating and just belting it out? Like, I mean, that'd be a good outtake or a good.
I'm sure I have a few pictures from that. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So I didn't really properly introduce you guys. We just kind of jumped in, but I should introduce, for anybody that doesn't know who you are, I think most people know you guys, but Chris is the creator and director, co-writer or writer of Lilo and Stitch, and also How to Train Your Dragon, The Croods, and most recently the director of the adaptation of Jack London's Call of the Wild. Jessica is the co-creator and kind of the mastermind behind the Rescue Sirens book series. And yeah, and they have also been my neighbors every year at Comic-Con since 2015, with the exception of this year. But this year I decided to throw my own convention in the driveway, which is San Diego Driveway Con. We had a pretty good couple days, and we're going to go one more day tomorrow. You can go to drivewaycon.com for all the details. But I just said it wouldn't be like, I wouldn't have my Comic-Con experience if I didn't get to pick your guys' brain for a little bit, because that's one thing I look forward to every year, is just kind of just chatting you guys up and seeing what's going on with you, spending 5 days with you every year. So.
And I need my glassware from this year because I have
That's
my whole.
true.
Yeah, I got all the previous years.
You got your
Here, right
your
here.
creepy
When I
peekies.
make my fashions every night,
man.
I choose my glass from our arsenal.
That's the first one. That one's been out of print for a while. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
That one's got a lot of old fashions.
I'm very careful with it. It does not go in the dishwasher. I'm very careful with it.
Yeah. Well, no, you guys are always so cool. Anytime I have something new, like you always do some cool shout outs. So I appreciate you.
Well, we appreciate the cool glassware.
Oh, yeah.
Anything nice for the drink.
Love your stuff. Love the vibe.
Thank you guys. So I wanted to kind of start off on a strange note. When I was a child, there was a show that I remembered that was on TV called Little Muppet Monsters, and I remember watching it for a while, and then later on, and then just kind of disappeared, like after a couple episodes. And then, you know, I would always ask my friends if anybody saw it. Nobody had any idea what I was talking about. And then I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago, like, footage on YouTube just popped up, and I thought I had maybe imagined it for the last 25 years or so. And then, so as I was prepping to talk to you guys, I was looking through your IMDb, and I think your earliest IMDb gig was actually as like a character modeler or a model designer for Little Muppet Monsters. So what I want to do is I just want to pull up my my screen real quick, and you know, kind of show people what this show kind of looked like. So hang on, let me pull this up on the screen share. So Chris, I am dying to hear what your involvement was with this show.
You know, I was on a show, it's almost this, it was Muppet Babies, which is, I think, the next door neighbor to this show.
It's the animated version.
It's the animated version. It's the animated version. And yes, you're absolutely correct. I was, that was my first job. And it was, it's so weird. It was the first time I had ever gone to an office and sat down and I had to begin to draw from like 9 to 5. And it sounds like not such a big deal now, but I had never done it.
You had no choice.
Yeah, when you're a kid and you're growing up and you're like, I draw when I feel like it and stuff like that. And suddenly I got this job after college and I showed up at this building, Marvel Productions. Oddly enough, it wasn't their main building because apparently their building had burned down. Everybody was talking about the fire. When I got there, I'm like, what fire? And they're like, that's why we're in this building next to a miniature golf course because our other building is gone. But I sat down at a desk and I started doing drawings and I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Turns out I would do something called modeling. Because these cartoons are produced and physically drawn far away, like in
like
Taiwan and places like that, they needed to have accurate models of everything drawn, which means if there was a chair or a costume or a cookie or a radio or anything, I would take that object, I would draw it from all sorts of different angles as though it was a real solid object, which is an interesting thing for me because my entire life I hated to draw like things like chairs. And like they just had no interest for me. And my teachers at school were like, well, you must draw everything you see, you must draw chairs and traffic lights and you know, and I was like, But my first job was doing all those things. It was an amazing discipline actually to learn. And it was really good for me. At the end of like 3 years, I had drawn hundreds and hundreds of things from all different angles. And now when it comes time to do something like a model,
like a sculpture, you can do a turn.
Yeah, I can actually do a turn because it's something I used to do to make money. My first job.
That's awesome. Now, did you ever get to meet Henson? Was he ever around?
I met Henson once and Frank Oz one time. We went to a restaurant. It was like a sort of a thank you. We finished our first TV season of the Muppet Babies, and as a thank you, the whole studio went to this restaurant in Los Angeles. I believe it's called Ed DeBevick's or something. I don't think it's there anymore. Anyway, we were all having this wonderful dinner and stuff, and then Jim Henson and Frank Oz showed up to thank us, and they made a really quick little speech. But then the weirdest thing, and the thing I'll never forget, they both put on their puppets. So Frank Oz
Miss Piggy,
put on Miss Piggy, and Jim Henson put on Kermit, and they did this whole little just ad-libbed thing in character. And the thing that fascinated me was these two human beings instantly vanished, and it was just the puppets. Like they did this whole like half-hour thing, and when they were done, it was like, huh? Who are those two guys? Like,
that's cool.
It was an amazing magical thing that they could put these puppets on and just everything vanished. Like everything just faded away except for the puppets. And so I got to see them actually do those two characters in person one time.
So cool.
Wow. Yeah, you really racked up some pretty amazing life experience. That is great.
I was going to say, speaking of the Marvel building, you should tell your other story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Having to do with Marvel. Devin, I'm pretty sure we've told you this one. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I might have heard it, but anybody listening might not have. So go ahead.
There's a specific image that goes along with it.
Yes.
You start the story. I'll see if I can find my And pull it up.
Um,
I know it's on your website, but
Yeah, we after they renovated a building and we moved into this new building and it became Marvel Productions. And upstairs is where Stan Lee had his office. And every once in a while you'd see Stan Lee walking through the building and stuff like that. He's really nice guy. One day somebody came in and they said, "Hey, would you be willing to put on this Spider-Man suit because we want to do a photo shoot with Stan Lee and you are the only person we think that might fit inside this suit." And they held up this little suit, and I swear the whole suit was like this big. It was this little tiny thing. I'm like, what even is that? And they said, well, it has a zipper in the back and it kind of stretchy and you put it on. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And they said, we'll give you $20. And I said, sold, I'll do it. So I went into a bathroom and I put this outfit on and I zipped up the back and it completely disguised my identity. I left the bathroom and I walked up to people I'd worked with for like over a year and nobody knew who I was. And I went down the stairs and I walked out front and Stan Lee was there with a photographer and he had his Rolls Royce and they wanted to do some pictures of Spider-Man, his creation, and his Rolls Royce and he. So we spent like probably 15, 20 minutes doing all sorts of poses. And at the very end, he said, well, that was great. We're all done. And then he said, hey, why don't you guys like stare at each other and be like you're mad at each other and put your noses real close to each other. So we did, and that was the last picture that the photographer took. And that was the picture that has been used all over the place. And for years, I walked into comic stores, and I can still do it to this day. I can walk into a comic store, I will see that photograph, and Stan Lee signed it. And not that long ago, I was watching a documentary about Stan Lee, and he was in his apartment talking, and that photograph, somebody had done like a giant,
it's like a pop art version,
a huge pop art painting
like
of that thing, that picture, and I'm like, that's me.
We even saw it in New York. We saw it in the in a coffee shop.
Yep.
In Columbus Circle in
It's
New
all
York,
over the
somebody
place.
had painted it in this coffee shop, so it
all over the
follows
place.
you around.
That is really cool. You know, I did see that that photo, but I didn't know the story behind it. That's incredible.
We only really revealed it. I mean, when Stanley died, was it November 2018? So nobody knew until then.
Yep. We found it since then. We found a few other pictures that have surfaced.
Yes, people have posted it from that photo shoot with the Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And next, are you going to tell me next about the time you met Walt Disney? Is there going to be?
Oh my gosh, I wish he was long gone, but I didn't. I knew Roy Disney.
Pop culture, yeah. That's amazing. So, I've been exhibiting next to you guys for a while. What was your first? You know, like, I mean, you guys do so many cool things. You don't even really have to go to Comic-Con. I know you guys just do it for the love. What was the first show that you guys ever did?
I mean, you were going to San Diego in the 80s.
I was going to San Diego when I was working at Marvel. I would take a few days off and go down to Comic-Con. I would just drive down for the day and then come back. So I was doing it way back before the entire hall was even opened up. It was a smaller convention. I don't even remember what year I exhibited for the first time.
You exhibited, what was it, like 08? Because you just hit 10 years. It was like between 06 and 08, I think, was when you started exhibiting. Okay. I came in 2012 and started exhibiting for the first time.
And I had moved around. There was like, we went a few different locations, kind of trying to find, the right place to be. But it's been really fascinating. I'm sure you could say the same thing. I mean, you have conventions in your blood. You've been doing this for forever.
Yeah, I've been tabling since I was a small child. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, what is your memory?
It's child labor.
I first started doing the shows when I was a teenager in Detroit at the Motor City Comic Con, and so those were the earliest shows I did when I was still living in the Midwest. And then the first Comic-Con I exhibited at was 02. So I kind of started in the small press, and then I jumped out into the illustrator section where we're at now. Yeah.
And it's hard to explain. Like, there's this really weird relationship that you have with cons. I think that everybody I've ever spoken to has the same thing going on. They're not the easiest things to do, and they're not relaxing. They're exhausting, but it's this weird thing where it's like this love affair, because by the last day, when you should be celebrating because it's over, you actually feel sad and emotional, like that it's coming to an end. Yeah. It's weird. It's like you get sent into this sort of battle, and you're like,
alternate universe.
I'm tired, I'm hungry. But it's so much fun. And
it's so much fun, and being able to see everybody. We're pretty introverted. We tend to be homebodies. So San Diego is our big time to be social and see all of our friends actually in person, and come out of our hobbit hole.
I thought you guys were just on all the time like you are.
No,
that's you guys introverts. That would have never crossed my mind. Ever.
No, we're hanging out watching like Forensic Files and stuff at home. And, but it really is funny, because it reminds me, we were talking about Halloween before we went live, and how much all of us love Halloween. Yeah. I did Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando for 7 years. And that was about a 5-week event. It was all of October, and then usually it started, you did previews in the beginning of September. And it would start out, and the first week you're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I love this. Is so much fun. Second week, you go up a little bit more. You're like, all right, I've got the hang of this. I really have everything dialed in. Third week, you start to go down. You're like, man, I'm starting to wear out. Like, I'm starting to get a little bit tired. Fourth week, you go, I hate this. I'm never doing this again. How did I talk myself into this? The fifth week, you go, oh my God, it's over, and you start to cry. And that's what Comic-Con is like. Instead of 5 weeks, it's all in 5 days.
Yeah, it's kind of like high school is what it sounds like. It's kind of like. So what character did you were a scare actor?
Yeah, I was a scare actor. I played, golly, so I was on the streets instead of being in the houses. I was out in the scare zones for all year, every year except for one. It was definitely my preference because I got to have more fun. I was an oremonger, which was like an orc in like a kind of medieval. This was when it was in Islands of Adventure back in 2005. Cool. Then I was in a house the next year was Deadtropolis. I was a zombie businesswoman. I had a briefcase, swung it at people. In 2007, I was Leatherface's victim when they brought in New Line and they did the licensed houses for the first time in Orlando. 2008 was one of my favorite years. I played Universal's version of the Evil Queen in the Fractured Tales, like Fractured Tales scare zone, and that was fantastic because I got to be horrid to people and they loved it. I love Evil Queen from Snow White, so it was great to be able to do that. That was 2008. 2009, I was a victim again, which I did not love, of like, it was called Apocalypse, City of Cannibals. It was basically Universal's take on Chud. So it was like, we had these cannibals running around the New York street, and I just got attacked over and over and cried and whatnot. Which was
attacked by the Chuds. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So that was 2009. 2010, I was a grown-up version of Alice in Wonderland, and I loved that. That was 20 Years of Fear, and so they brought back a bunch of characters from past years, and I was in the entrance scare zone and interacted with a bunch of past characters and past icons, and it was fantastic. I loved that year. And then my last year I did it was 2011, and I was the Vanity Temptress in the Seven Sins scare zone 7. And that one was kind of a drag because I stood up on like this stage and didn't get to interact as much. But it was a really neat concept because you start out, you had 7 girls playing Seven Sins, and I played Vanity / Pride. You would start out and you'd be in, these beautiful dresses, beautiful outfits, and you had kind of these China doll masks on. Then partway through the night, like a third of the way through the night, you had the same mask on, but then your clothes started getting kind of torn up. And then by the last part of the night, in my case, my dress is all ripped up and I had a giant mask on, including a wig, and I looked like Jocelyn Wildenstein. I looked like the cat lady. Like I'd had too much plastic surgery and I had like cuts all over me from where I'd been having things done. And they played The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. They started out with a children's choir version, which was fantastic. And then, partway through the night, then they went into the actual version. So that's the last year I did it. I miss it so much. It was so much fun.
Now, the thing that I thought was so cool is that one of the stories are fantastic. One of the stories I really enjoyed was that when you were doing the Leatherface thing, Jess would get in line with the people that were going through.
I did this one night. On the last night I played, I was essentially a shill. And we had people who would drop their blinky cups and their little blinky horns and stuff because they'd get scared. And so we kept them all backstage like trophies. And so I got a pair of blinky horns and a little blinky cup. And I went through the line and I started insulting all the characters because you have people saying, "You're not scary, you suck." And so I would do that. And I had my Leatherface. I was in the kitchen packed over and over. And I was like, "You're not scary, you suck." And he grabs me and pulls me backstage. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'll never say Halloween Horror Night sucks again."
So from the crowd's point of view, somebody like that was amongst them got grabbed and actually yanked into like the back. Wasn't he on a bungee cord?
No, that was a different one. That was
Okay.
a different scene where they had somebody hanging on a hook.
But
yeah,
you did get drug away screaming.
I did get dragged backstage screaming.
I wish I'd
And then got
that.
back in line and did it all over again.
I wouldn't get enough of that.
It was a great job. We got punched, spat on, kicked, grabbed, roped, you name it, and we kept coming back for more.
And well, good for you. That's incredible. I did not know you had that long of a background doing that. That's
Oh
cool.
man, no, it's
It's your favorite.
I love it. I love it. I would do it here if, I wasn't 100 years old at this point, but we go to horror nights in Hollywood, and it's so much fun to see it again. We're gonna miss seeing it this year.
We went last year just to hang out and just watch it all. It was just so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that every year. That's our tradition. We absolutely have a blast doing it. I wanted to ask you guys. So we're doing a year without Comic-Con. Are you guys participating in any of the Comic-Con at Home events that Comic-Con International put out?
We were going to, and then it just kind of
it didn't.
Slipped our mind.
We have been working really hard on new things, but our focus went into brand new stuff, and so
we had our Sideshow thing coming up that we were focused on instead. So no, we didn't.
Well, let me since you mentioned that, let me pull that up on the screen share here.
I'm gonna go check the
check the gate.
I'm gonna let Buck out. I will be right back.
Sure.
Keep on going outside.
Okay, what are we looking at, Chris?
Okay, so this is our very first Sideshow collectible that is in pre-order right now. I think I think you can click on an RSVP.
It's not pre-order, it's RSVP.
It's RSVP, so you get
as soon as pre-orders up.
Right, so you get on a mailing list, and they will notify you when it's up. Anyway, so this was the centerfold in our number 7 sketchbook. It was a drawing that Jess saw me doing, and she said, you should take that to finish. That would be a great thing to see in our sketchbook.
I needed a centerfold. I needed something the right dimensions. I'm like, yes, good. Let's use that.
Yeah. So
this is really cute.
We started talking to Sideshow about doing a series, and this is the first one, and we're super stoked, obviously, about it. It came out beautifully.
It's sculpted.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's sculpted by Anders Ehrenborg, who is an amazing sculptor. We have worked with him before when we produced one of our own statues. Actually, let me.
Oh no, she's right back there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me grab her.
Yeah, we've worked with him before. We love his sensibilities. He's such an amazing guy. We have actually never really met him in person. We've always done things remotely, which is kind of cool. And when we were talking to Sideshow about doing the sculptures, the first person we thought about was going back to Anders and working with him on the digital sculpt.
Are we talking about the pineapple? That one. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Nimue. This is a mermaid sculpture. We've got a little shark and a little manta, and she came out, I want to say 2013, and Chris's style is really unique, but also really, really subtle and really hard to get right. And Anders nails it. And she was a limited edition. She sold out super, super fast. And so we're really happy to be able to give people who didn't get an opportunity to purchase Nimue the opportunity to get, another Anders sculpt of Chris's work, or people who did get Nimue, they can now add the next one to their collection.
Well, I think everybody in our family has that sticker of the pumpkin witch. I think
yes.
Oh, cool.
I think everybody in our circle has that one. That's a great choice for the first time out. That one's pretty sweet.
It was really neat bringing it to finish, because one of the things we had to talk about was well, do we need a little something extra going on? So we added a little bit of story, because it needs a little base, it needs a little bit of an environment. So we added the gravestone, and we put a little mouse coming out of the pumpkin. So we have a little story going on, which is very, very cool. So those little additions we did live with Anders as the sculpture progressed. I'm really happy with it. I think it's really fun. There's one of the things we've learned a lot from working with Sideshow, and
they're amazing. I mean, of course,
amazing.
they're like top of the line, of course.
And it was really interesting to get their observation during the process, during the creation. We would get their notes and their observations about like there should be no particular focal point. It should be on a round base because you should constantly be looking at it from different angles.
You never know which way someone's going to display it from.
Yeah, it was really neat. So we had to think about it. We had to think about that illustration, which of course is one single view. Now we had to think about it from any sort of angle. It should be interesting. Which is, I think, some of the fun of converting a drawing into a sculpture.
And one thing that's neat is that in adding the story and adding the mouse, it would be giant for a mouse, but it's like a rouse.
It's a giant mouse or a really small rat.
It all makes sense. I mean, when you look at it, it makes sense. Like, you don't think anything's off.
You don't think it's, exactly. And you have the little cat, Chris's women, he draws these beautiful, beautiful women, of course, but he also draws really cute animals. And so being able to do the same thing as with Nimue and add a couple of cute little animal friends is an opportunity to have like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the sculpture, and we're very hopeful that it does well, because we definitely want to do a longer, more.
Yeah.
We would love to just keep doing this.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of do so many things. Like, you're a jack of all trades. Like, how do you keep it all organized? Do you just kind of like go by your gut, is to be like, you know what, it's time to make a movie, or you know what, it's time to make a series of comic strips? Like, do you just kind of follow your intuition?
Yeah, things kind of come up. The movie thing kind of takes, in a way, it takes care of itself, because you finish one project, and if you're working for a studio, one of the fun things about working for a place like Disney or DreamWorks is that by the time you finish a film, you probably have a really good idea of what you're going to be going on to next. You may have been already developing it and stuff like that. In life, kind of the same thing. You should be, by the time you're finishing up, you should be starting to look for other things. This has been a very unusual transition because of the situation that we're in. So studios are doing, I think they're doing development stuff, but like the in-person
filming or
no filming stuff. The in-person thing has been very, very limited and now completely over Zoom. So it's still going on, but just a little bit more unusual circumstance. So
I mean, it's whatever we have time for and like what we get into. And
yeah, I mean, we have a lot of things we're interested in, and it's kind of a scramble. I think we should be more organized sometimes. Like, we kind of scramble, like you work on this one thing, like, oh, I got this idea, and you start working on it, and it starts to like come together and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's fun when an opportunity comes up just to be like, yeah, that sounds cool. I want to try that. That's something I haven't done before. And
exactly. And we try to throw enough stuff at the wall that hopefully a few things, stick. So we're always doing stuff.
And while we're on that topic, I want to talk a little bit about working on this film, The Call to Wild. So you took a pretty hard pivot on this one, where you became a live action director on this. How difficult was that to adapt to, having this life experience of being an animation director, and then being like, hey, you're going to be working with Harrison Ford, and also, you're going to be blending with a CG dog. Like, how difficult was that pivot?
It's a pretty big step, to say the least. The thing that made me feel as though I could do it was that there was such a gigantic animated component, and that was something that was very familiar to me. So really, arguably, the main character is a 100% animated character, and a lot of the leads, all the dog team and Sides the Wolves, they were all animated. That made me feel like one half of this, at least, I could do.
Speaking of, I'm gonna go get a buck out of the back.
Oh, Buck's outside. So I felt like one half of this I could do. The other half, I figured, I can learn it. And the great thing about, and the very unusual thing about this particular situation, I was working with an amazing team. They basically said, like, you're going to have the Yankees on your team. So we had Janusz Kaminski as our cinematographer, and Stefan Deschamps as our production designer. Every single person that we worked with was as good as they could possibly be. So I had this amazing team around me, and it made it relatively simple. One of the things the process was 100% new to me. One of the things about animation that is tedious is that animation is like, it's like you took a movie crew and you took them and you separated them. So your actors are in two different places. You film an actor, or you record an actor for the voice, and then you talk to the animators, and they are also your actors. And then you have the layout department, that's your cinematographers. You talk to them separately. So you talk to all these disciplines separately. And the exciting thing to somebody who works in animation is the idea that you would walk onto a set and all these disciplines would be in one place at one time, and it would happen all at once. So
not as much repeating yourself.
No, yeah, not as much repeating yourself. And so that is the exciting thing, but also the very intimidating thing about it, because in animation, you have a very, very long time. You can change things, you can adjust things, you make revisions. Animation is all about revisions. The thing that was intimidating about this was that I would have to walk onto a set on, on October 15th, and we have a scene, and at the end of the day, you have to have that scene done. And I was so frightened that we would go out, we would work really hard, we would be driving home, they would be bulldozing the set behind us, and all of a sudden I would go, oh my God, we forgot to get this one thing. The terror I felt, the nonstop terror that never left me the entire 50 days of filming, was that I would forget something. My producers assured me, they were like, that will not happen. We are here behind you, watching you, making sure that nothing will be forgotten. And indeed, actually, one of the things I was very surprised by was the repetition. You actually do a scene maybe 20 times, maybe 30 times, and that's where your coverage comes from. So one of the things I learned by working with Janusz is that the very first thing we would shoot would be what we would call a master. We would rehearse the scene in the morning, very early in the morning. We would rehearse the scene, we would talk through it, we would make some decisions, and pretty soon you say, all right, let's try it. Let's do this. Everybody breaks, they light the scene, they work very, very hard, maybe an hour, 2 hours to light the scene. Everybody reconvenes, and now our actors are in costume, they're in full makeup, and we begin. And we would shoot a master. We'd have 2 cameras working, we would shoot one giant master of the entire scene nonstop. So if a meteor struck and we lost electricity for the rest of the month, we would have the scene. We would have something we could put up on the screen. And then after that, you move in and you start getting details of this and this. And in that, you get these wonderful sort of accidents and little happenstances. And that's the exciting thing about live action, is that, and it exists in animation as well. You do get these sort of quirky little things that happen that you didn't expect. And by the end of the day, you're driving home and you're like, wow, we got some really cool stuff. I'm very excited. So it was a big step. And I will, the last thing I'll say, unless you have more questions, is it is absolutely the most exhausting thing I've ever done, ever.
It looked exhausting. Like, I mean, I can't imagine. It's
yeah. It is extremely exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it was directed by an animation director. I mean, you took.
Oh, we lost audio.
Oh, lost audio. I think we cut out. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, we got a little freeze.
Hello?
Oh,
there we go.
Okay, we can hear you, but you're still not moving. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Oh, you guys are back. You guys cut out for a second.
Oh.
Okay,
everybody's back.
Okay, we're back. Well, the one thing I wanted to ask is that you, so you got to see a personal puppet show by Jim Henson and Frank Oz. You did a photo op as Spider-Man with Stan Lee, kind of like in maybe the height of his popularity. And then now you've directed Harrison Ford, and we're in a movie where, him and an animated dog kind of have to carry the whole thing. You got to have at least one good Harrison Ford story for me.
Golly, are there any we can tell?
That won't get you in trouble.
I mean, what you see is what you get. Like
he is a character. He is amazing. He is a real life.
He's super smart, super friendly. Like the first time I could tell about the first time we talked to him, we were supposed to just drive to his house and talk to him. And the weird thing about live action, that when I was a kid, we had our Super 8 cameras and all of our friends, and it didn't take long before we started shooting movies.
And the way that we did it, my friend Lance would have an idea for a movie, my friend Lance Christensen, and he would call me up and he'd say, hey, Chris, I've got this idea for this movie. I want to do this thing. Are you free on like Friday? Can you come over? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm free. And he's like, great. And then he would call a bunch of people, and pretty soon a bunch of people showed up at Lance's house, and we would march down the street and we'd shoot a few scenes for this movie that he'd thought up. And I thought to myself, someday I'm going to work on a real movie. It's going to be so amazing, and it's going to be completely different than this. And what I learned was it is absolutely no different than that. It is exactly that same thing. A producer calls people like Harrison Ford and says, hey, you want to do this movie? And he's like, I'm not sure. Can you tell me more about it? And so pretty soon I'm driving to Harrison Ford's house with my producer, and we just show up at the end of the street, and this gate opens and it's Harrison Ford. And he's like, come on in. And all of a sudden you're sitting in his living room and you're telling him about this movie and what you intend to do. And he's like, okay, I think it sounds cool. Let's do it. And so
that's amazing.
They signed some paperwork, and he shows up like we did at Lance's house, and Janusz Kaminski shows up, and our grips show up, and the sound technicians show up, and all these things show up in a place that everybody simply agrees that they will show up at. And then you're like, let's shoot a movie. So it's this weird, strange thing that all these people come together and they do this thing. And then when it's done, they just go away. Like they just sort of, and then they find
everybody goes home for dinner.
Everybody goes home for dinner, and they find a new movie to work on. And it's this weird, sort of strange thing that people like, the government doesn't mandate that a movie gets done. It's just a bunch of people that agree to do it. And it's a strange thing. It's an amazing thing. And so I went to Harrison Ford's house, and that's my first Harrison Ford story, is that he was extremely friendly. And it was so weird because I was talking to him, and the entire time I was talking to him and talking to him about the specifics of the movie, and he had really good questions. I would do my best to answer them. I kept thinking, like, that's Harrison Ford. He's right there. He's like this close to me. It's him, and he's right there. And you always have this. And I do have to say that everyone that runs into him, I think, has the same thing that happens, which is what was going on with me. It's like, it's him. Even though you're talking about something else, you're like, it's Harrison Ford. He's right there. It's like, it's weird. He's, yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk about, the thing that's, he's like a force of nature. He keeps himself in really excellent shape. We went out to his place in Wyoming to work on, you guys are working on the script, because one thing is he really wants to understand his character, and he has a lot of great insights about story. And so we go out, and we brought my late dog Brody with us as well. So we're out in Wyoming, and the first thing he does, like we get off, because he flew out there, he flew us out there, and we go to a bike shop and rent a mountain bike for me. He's gonna lend one to Chris, and the first thing we do is we go mountain biking with him on his like 800 acres of.
Didn't he have like a broken hip from an airplane accident or something?
What's that?
Didn't he have like a broken hip from an airplane accident or something?
He had. I know he had something
before that.
Maybe, I know he had the thing with Star Wars with the.
He had a thing with Star Wars where there's an injury.
That was his.
He crashed a plane a couple years ago.
He's done some emergency landings.
He's had some emergency landings.
But you know what? He's almost like a modern day Teddy Roosevelt. I think he just, by force of will, he will just. I'll say, he is. What is he? He's 78 now.
Yeah, late 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, 78. And, this was a couple of years ago, but we go out on this mountain biking path. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just going to go on like gravel road. And then he hangs a left and he goes onto like an elk path, right? With
as we rode, the path got narrower and narrower.
And there are all these tree roots.
And more rugged and more up and down.
And we went over this series of bridges that were like 2x4s basically over water. And I'm like, dude, this guy is my dad's age and he's kicking my ass.
Yeah. That's one thing. There is nothing that he cannot do and will not do. I mean, it's amazing. Like, one of the things that I had like understood from things I'd read is that when he shows up, he is like an amazing professional.
He's like consummate professional.
Oh my God. Like, yeah, if like we were doing a scene where he had to take a G pole, which is a long wooden pole, and he has to like like crack a sled out of the ice. That sled was like 400 pounds. And we were like, well, do we really want to have him do that? Or do we want to figure out some way to like sort of like make it look like somebody snapped the sled? And
it's like, no, he just does it.
Yeah, he just grabbed the pole, stuck under the sled, and went and like broke the whole sled up, and did that every single take
over again.
And with no complaints. It just, and I thought to myself, I privately thought, like, after we're done filming, I think I'm gonna go out and see if I can do that myself. And I actually decided against it because I'm like, I think I could break my back doing that. But he did it like time and time again. I think he has a really great sense of humor. He brought a lot of humor to the film. And one of the things that I was really fascinated by, in animation, we are always working with people's voices. We're always pushing people to, in a sense, overact. I'm like, I'll constantly tell actors, like, go as far as you want with this take and go beyond that. And if you go too far, I'll pull you back. Because when you separate somebody from their voice, you really need them to inhabit that character purely in voice. So we're pushing people. One of the things I found remarkable about being on the set is how, like, we would, I'd say action, and I'd watch our actors work. And I actually thought sometimes, I'm like, well, they didn't do anything. They didn't act. They were just almost really, that was it. And then you watch the shot, you bring the shot up on the monitor, you watch it in detail, and you're like, oh my God, that's what acting is.
It's like, so subtle.
It's amazing. And some of the stuff that Harrison Ford did, I appreciated at the time, but after we got into editorial and you really got to sit there in this room and just examine frame by frame these performances, they're remarkable.
Yeah.
It really is an unusual skill, a rare skill.
I'm amazed by it because I feel like I have a hard time acting like a normal human on a regular basis. I'm like, wait, so you can do this, but you can do like different stuff. Someone can tell you how to act and you can do that successfully over and over again. Like, yeah. Wow.
There were moments I got so choked up seeing his performance.
Yeah.
And it was weird to me later. I'm like, I was there when that happened. And it just, I don't know, it's now I'm getting to a realm where it's kind of hard to explain.
I know, he sold it hard. It was, yeah, he did just a fantastic job with.
It's really remarkable, isn't it? Really amazing.
So I want to ask you, so you've made this big pivot into a live action director now, but we're now also in a we're also in a time where a lot of people are going back to animation because you can do that in a vacuum and without, like interacting with people in the same room. Do you see yourself over the next couple of years continuing on with live action, or are you going to go back to like either 2D or 3D animation?
I think I would love to just do both. One of the things that
depends on how things go now.
What opportunities are there, and so one of the things that I've really been lucky. I started in traditional animation. I started out in TV animation, which was Muppet Babies. And then I moved into traditional animation at Disney, where I worked in the development department, and then I became a story artist, eventually directing and writing. And now I've worked in live action. And even in that, we started with traditional animation, and then it went to CG. So we got this whole new set of tools that superseded the old set. And now live action I see it as just another set of tools to tell a different story. So every story has its best life in some medium. Some things are going to work best in 2D traditional animation. Some things are going to work best as hybrids, Cool.
Well, yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. And I'm sure you've got some talks, and I'm sure things are probably early on. Probably nothing you can tell us about, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
I thought I'd try. Okay, so I want to talk about the Rescue Sirens. So this is a really fantastic book. I believe there's two books right now, right? Like there's the prose book and the illustrated book, right?
Correct.
Yes, there's the novel, and then there's a children's book, which there we go. Which is the novel is for anybody ages 8, and then the children's book is like ages 8 and under, kids who are a little too young for the novel. We have the next several novels like thought out and outlined. We just haven't gotten around to writing them. It's
we're
been
going
a
to be
little
doing.
busy.
That's one of the things we're going to be doing this next week.
Yes, hopefully over the next week. Now that we have things, we've kind of caught up with things after Call of the Wild, and now we're starting to get into doing some of the other stuff. Stuff like this, which is our it's not that Call of the Wild isn't fun, but this is like our extracurricular stuff. So getting into our fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, one of the silver linings that I found about everything that's happened and everything kind of being shut down is that I don't know about you guys, but I have like a giant file of unfinished projects or like ideas, and I've actually found that I haven't really had any desire to start anything new, but I have had a strong desire to kind of pull out those old stories or things that are unfinished. Yeah. So do you guys find that to be the same, or are you guys constantly coming up with new stuff?
That's the way you said it is just that's exactly how we feel. We don't really it's an interesting thing because you have all this free time now, depending on what's going on with your day job, because Chris got in under the wire when it came to Call of the Wild coming out. It was one of the last films to release before everything started getting shut down.
I would dare say it's the last big film release that was fairly unaccosted by the virus, because right after us came out
Onward came out, but that got cut down. That got it was only out for
that went straight to Disney Plus almost immediately, right?
Almost, yeah. So
and the last thing we did in Hollywood was we went to the premiere of Mulan,
the live action
which they
Mulan.
Still thought was going to be released, and then after we went to the premiere, they pulled it.
And it has no definite release date. So it got pushed twice, I think, and now they have no idea when they're going to come out with it. So they had their premiere and everything. We got to go and see it, and then the door slammed. But yeah, so now that we have this free time after Call of the Wild, with everything going on, you would think oh, hey, now we finally have the opportunity to do all the stuff we wanted to do and come up with new stuff. It's strangely draining. Bless you. It's strangely draining with everything that's going on. Yeah. So creatively, it is hard to come up with new things. But being able to go back to something familiar is a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I it's funny, when this happened, all I wanted to do was watch 70s genre television. So I started watching the old Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys shows, and then old Night Gallery, Kolchak and I.
Oh man! Oh yes.
So that was kind of my go-to for the first 2 months. That was kind of my comfort food. I just went.
So it's your TV equivalent of a blanket and some soup and
exactly.
That was your blanket for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was not interested in anything that was coming out new or people's kind of hot take on what was happening. I just kind of wanted to go back to kind of what I was born into, for sure.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I feel that.
So where are you with book 2?
We have book 2 outlined, and whenever Chris and I talk about working together and writing together, I always cite George R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones, the writer of Game of Thrones, and the Song of Ice and Fire series. He says that as a writer, you're either a gardener or you're an architect. Chris is a gardener. He likes to plant seeds and then kind of see where they go as the plants grow, and it's all a bit of a surprise to him as he writes, whereas I'm very much an architect. So I like to have everything laid out ahead of time. And so I have all chapters outlined with, what's going to go on. And so together we work really well because Chris gets to inject, spontaneity in these ideas that just kind of come out of nowhere. But I give him the structure that helps him do that. So he has this structure within which he can play around. So I have the second novel outlined and we have some stuff written on it. But it's been a while since we've worked on it. So we're gonna go back and see how we feel about it since we've been away from it for a while, and then
which I think is really sometimes that kind of thing is good. I know that with some things I've worked on, there was a sculpture. I always remember this. I was making the sculpture and I worked very hard on it. And something came up and I stopped working on it. I put it in a closet for about 3 or 4 months. And then I was like, I've got to finish that thing up. And when I pulled it back out of the closet, it was like, whoa, I saw something that was so grievously like damaged. There was something terribly wrong with it. And I immediately just grabbed the sculpture and like pretty much broke it in half and then stuck it together in this new configuration, and suddenly it worked. So taking a break from something or cycling through different things, depending on how you work, I think can be a really good thing, because you step away from it and you come back and look at it, and now you see it as brand new.
Yeah, you see it in a different light.
That's kind of what we're doing with this story, but I think
Yeah.
that we've been away from it long enough, and we are re-engaging with it right now. And I really do, I love working with somebody like Jess, who is great at structure, but also is like, I kind of go like, if I see a situation with a couple characters, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna write it, and I'll jump in and start writing it. Which is, there's some like upsides to that.
There are a lot of upsides.
A lot of upsides, but the problem is you can write something and you can just waste a lot of time, because you start like going to the left and curving left, and then Jess will come in and go like, okay, that's great, but hold on a second, let's talk about the entire picture. Let's look at the big picture. Where are we going? And that's the most important thing, because attending to a story is change. A long time ago, I asked somebody, I was in Cal Arts, and I felt really silly asking this question, but I was in a story writing class, and I had written tons of what I would call stories, but they were really kind of like nonsense. I would just write like these sort of ghastly little situations, stories of misfortune and disaster, and where characters died grisly deaths, and they were very, very short. They were short, shocking tales of disaster. And I wouldn't say those are really stories. And I asked this professor, I said, I have a really silly question. What is a story? And he said, good question. A story is change. And that's it. A character that changes, or a character that changes the world around them, or a little bit of both. And that's what Jess attends to. She's like, all right, like she basically says, before you begin, let's talk about what are we saying? What is the one thing you want to say about this? With Lilo and Stitch, it was the story of a villain becoming a hero. That's all it was. The details didn't really matter. It was just, that was the story we were telling. And that was brand new for Disney. Nobody had ever done a redemption story. So with these characters that she created, they're very, very clearly defined, which is something I love, because it makes them, there's simplicity and strength, or strength and simplicity. And these are very clearly defined characters. And she will find that simplicity in a story. She's the discipline in the equation, and she's like, all right, before you go off and write, let's spend a few days talking about the structure of the story. And that's something I would recommend for anyone. You actually spend, I have found, more time, or almost an equal amount of time in outline as you do in production and writing. When I work on an animated film, you can spend months or sometimes over a year in outline, just trying to figure out like, what are the steps of the story? What are the, once you have that, then you can jump in, and then you can be free to really get in there and write some great, surprising, fun stuff, because we will divide up a sequence, or divide up a story sequence by sequence, mm-hmm. and write different chapters, and then we'll trade them back and forth. But when you get your chapter 3, you're like, I know where this begins, I know where it ends, but how we get there is up to me now.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
the fun part.
You can have a lot of fun and write some very, very clever stuff. But once you finish it, it fits into the larger picture.
That's the great thing about having the outline, is because I know that, when I have written things in the past, I get writer's block, and then as soon as that happens, like, boom, I'm done. The thing, never gets finished. But with having a partner, if you hit writer's block, you can throw something to your partner and have them take a whack at it. And when it's outlined, you can also jump somewhere else. If you know where the story starts and where it ends, and each section within that, you can say, well, I don't really feel like writing this part of it, but I really feel like writing, the end chapter, or, the second to the last chapter. This one really appeals to me right now. I'm in the mood to write this chapter. So that's where outlining is really necessary for me, because that allows me to jump around and not just do something from start to finish, which I would literally never be able to accomplish.
Well, I'm a very slow reader, so I still haven't even actually finished the first book yet. Uh-huh. So I definitely, it's on my bookshelf right there in the corner. You can't see it through this gigantic pile of clothes that was here from Driveway Con. But over there, I swear to God, I have it, and it's on my book to read list over here.
So I have a quick question. I'm just gonna like, one of the things I'm kind of curious when it comes to your art. Who are your like influences?
Oh, I mean, I kind of wear them all on a sleeve. I'd say maybe number one would be Charles Adams,
Okay.
and then I think Mark Davis, from who the Disney Imagineer,
yeah.
who created a lot of the characters from the Haunted Mansion and Pirates.
Right? Yeah.
But my all-time favorite is the Country Bears. Like even more than the Haunted Mansion, I'm a Country Bears guy.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, that's always been my favorite Disney anything. But then, of course, Edward Gorey, and then Stephen Gamble, who did all of the illustrations.
Yes. Yes, that was
the
my
most
childhood.
frightening art that has ever been
amazing.
produced. How does he do it?
Oh my God.
Yeah. But no, when I went to art school, my entire portfolio was just me copying Stephen Gamble's style. It was just me trying to figure out
Really?
how he did it. Yeah, and so everything was like kind of like these murky, kind of surrealistic, horrific, kinds of imagery. But yeah, I think I don't want to leave anybody out, but I think that's kind of my Mount Rushmore of people that have, also, God, who was the guy who kind of set the style book for Scooby-Doo, like all the background paintings for Scooby-Doo?
I know who you're talking about.
And I feel like
reading an article about him.
He was a Disney guy too, and he went over to Barbera and like kind of did all that, but
I know Kirk would know this.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name, but like incredibly influential on my work, like just the look of Scooby-Doo, kind of like, major one is Tom Wright. And Tom Wright did every single painting for Night Gallery with the exception of the pilot. And so he was actually at Comic-Con last year. Me and Vivian got to go to a Tom Wright panel and got to meet him afterwards. And that was one of the coolest things about last year.
I've never known about him, Tom Wright, because I used to watch Night Gallery. And of course, it's that thing that we're talking about, which like, I was drawn, I think a lot of people are, maybe everybody is, you're drawn to things that really freak you out.
Yeah, that are upsetting.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had a book. My brother, it was one of these things that in elementary school, they had these like things where it was like a book fair and you brought some money in and you ordered. Anyway, he got this book and it was called Strangely Enough. And it was this, I consider this book to be the most frightening thing I've ever read, because every single story terrified. Finished, and they were like 3 pages long. These stories were so short. But that book still, just seeing it on my shelf, I wonder if I shouldn't just burn it, because
I don't think it's on the shelf. I think it disappeared because you ordered it on eBay.
And it seems to move around on its own.
We don't know where it is now.
There it is. You just saw it.
Yeah,
there
no,
it is.
I was looking for. Is that the
That's it
version?
Strangely Enough. But there's this thing where we're so drawn. We're drawn to things that freak us out, and you're talking
they
about,
provoke a response.
Yeah. Like, and you trying to copy those drawings is freaky to me, because those drawings are scary.
See, they make me feel comfortable. Like, that makes me feel like a warm, like comfortable feeling when I see that. Like that
really?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite aesthetic is like 60s and 70s kind of gothic horror, like stuff like Dark Shadows and the Haunted Mansion and like Night Gallery. Like that's when I see that, I'm like, okay, I'm home. Like this is where I want to live for sure.
So when you were a kid, was there some like formative particular thing? Like was it an Alfred Hitchcock book or?
Oh, that's something I watched a lot when I was little. Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like I grew up in a very, very like strict religious household, and I think just kind of like this whole constant thing of like heaven and hell, good and bad, like these extremes, we're always kind of like such a strong part of everything. And I think like, when you were like, no, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. And like whenever you're told something that you can't have this, I think that you naturally want it. And
yeah,
definitely.
So I think like if they're like, no, don't go to the dark side, like don't like these spooky things, like, and it's like, I think I think those things are already attractive on their own, but I think when somebody says you can't have them and you're not supposed to have them, it's like forbidden fruit. And I think you're even more
forbidden. Yes.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we would walk around, we would take, in the middle of the winter in Colorado, my grandmother would say, we need to get out of the house. We need to take a walk. And we're like, why? It's cold outside. And we would go to like a nearby park and we would walk around the 2 lakes. And inevitably, as we walked around the lakes, no one walked out on these lakes because you could fall through the ice and die. The only place where people did walk out on the lake is where there was a sign that said danger, thin ice. And there would always inevitably be footprints out to the danger, thin ice sign and back to the trail.
It's human nature.
Yes, it's like you feel like, oh yeah, and like, oh, you're not telling me what to do, sign. And I'm like, why are the people doing this? But yeah, you're drawn to the like forbidden, like don't go in there. Like, why is something?
That means there's something
Yeah,
cool.
it just makes you more curious. Like, what is this other thing for sure?
Fascinating.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys. So, if somebody wanted, like, the cool thing that I love about you guys is that you could come to these shows and you could say, hey, man, I'm the guy that made Lilo and Stitch. Hey, I'm the guy that hangs out with Harrison Ford. But you don't do that. Like, you guys are incredibly humble, and you're pushing your own IP. And that's one thing I love about kind of the area that we're in at Comic-Con is that there's a lot of people that are creating their own thing. They're not like, just kind of like doing a Deadpool or a Wolverine or a Boba Fett. It's people pushing their own intellectual property. And I love that you guys don't have to do that, but you've chosen to go down that road and really push your own project and do what you love. So, I mean, where do people go that want to buy the personal stuff that you guys have done?
Well, right now we have the international shipping has been disabled because of all the delays that have been happening because things were getting lost, they're getting delayed. And so for right now, we're only doing domestic shipping. But if you go to chrissandersart.com, that's where we sell the latest 2 of Chris's sketchbooks. And we actually have more stock on the way because sketchbook 7 is sold out right now, but sketchbook 8, I think we still have a couple. Oh no, they're both sold out. Oh golly, we have it actually en route. So
I can see from your slide that we're in trouble here. We did mail some off.
We mailed them off, so they stocked this coming week. We have a lot of prints right now, and that's all done through a third party. So they print them out and ship them, and we don't have to have anything to do with them, which makes it super easy to always be adding stuff, which we like a great deal. We also have some pins that are for sale as well. Oh, there's Party Witches. I love that one.
Oh yeah.
We also have the Pumpkin Witch.
Oh yeah, let's pull up the pumpkin. Yeah, let's take a look at her. Okay.
There she is.
Yeah. All right.
There it is.
So there she is. That's the original.
Here we go.
There she is. Yeah, so we have a bunch of prints right now. We also have beach towels. We're going to be doing phone cases here soon. So we've got some fun stuff with Chris's original personal artwork on it. And we also are doing some enamel pins. If you go over to pinsofsteele.com, STEELE.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have my Kawaii Shark Eat-A-Bag that I produced last year, which is my baby. I love that thing.
Which was being previewed at Comic-Con last year. A lot of people saw the prototypes of the bag at Comic-Con and Lightbox, and now they really exist.
Yeah, and I was so looking forward to selling them in person. And now, of course, that's not going to happen for a little while. But yeah, so I've got the Eat-A-Bag there, but also some pins that are based on Rescue Sirens, but also Chris's personal artwork too. So we have Ogo from his webcomic Kiskaloo, and also a couple things that I think are unique. We have concept art on Stitch from Chris's original pitch book. I turned into enamel pins. That's back when Stitch was originally green. Those are Chris's.
This one here, the concept art.
Yeah.
Those are literally the very first ones. Yeah.
I love these. I love these original drawings. So cool.
And just did this amazing translation into some pins, and they just came out beautifully.
I love making pins.
Yeah, I picked at least one of those up last year. Like that one's awesome.
Yeah, they turned out well.
We do have a question from the chat. Let's see. I'm going to spell the name. I'm going to say it wrong. I think it's Tifa Chi says, will there be any way to buy originals like how you offered at Lightbox?
Golly, so like the sketches that you did, we generally only do those in person. We don't usually, we feel real nervous about shipping original artwork.
I guess we've never really we recently did an eBay auction with an original sketch, and that was the first time we've ever done that. And so I guess the question would be, do we want to try that again and see how it goes, or how would we approach that?
The short answer is we haven't decided if we're going to do that. Again, simply because shipping original artwork, I mean, you know how it is. It's fraught with suspense, and especially right now with everything being so delayed, and the USPS being slowed down.
It would be safe to say that if we do that, we're going to let people know via Instagram, loud and clear. If you follow our Instagram, you will know loud and clear that we're about to do that.
Yeah, we get a lot of requests for that because Chris doesn't usually make his personal artwork available, even at Comic-Con for many years.
It's hard to let go of them.
It is hard to let go of them. For many years, Chris didn't even sell them at Comic-Con, and he's brought a few pieces with him these past couple of years, and they always sell out like that because they're so rare, so hard to come by. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
We should consider it, in lieu of Comic-Con. And so if you stay tuned to our Instagram, you'll absolutely know. That's the first place we'll let everybody know. Yeah,
if we decide to do that, because I know a lot of people are very interested in that. Here, come here.
Well, Tifa, she said, or here, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's he or she. It says she has an Ogo and crocodile that you drew for me at Lightbox, and got it tattooed. So there you go.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. How cool that is. I remember that.
That's awesome.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So cool.
So I talked to you before we started chatting, and I was like, what's next for you guys? And it sounds like you guys are just going to take a very well-earned vacation after this.
Yeah, for a little bit, huh?
Yeah, you definitely want to take a break.
Take a breather.
Yeah, you have enough break now. We're starting to get to work again. So.
It's true. It took a while to kind of catch up on things. Like we're doing stuff like getting the house remodeled, kind of stuff. Where our poor front yard has been a nightmare.
Actually, non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were too busy to deal with it, and so and now we're dealing with it.
Now we're finally catching up on all that stuff.
We've got a brand new bathroom almost done that we started since this. It's like once you're home, like that's your kingdom. So you gotta make it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now you have to face it. Like, okay, I can't ignore it anymore. It's time to get this fixed. So we've been doing a lot of that as well. A lot of cleaning house stuff.
What can your fans expect from you guys in 2021?
Oh golly.
We're trying it's a very interesting question, because one of the things that I'm sure that you have been following as well is that one of the reasons we love Comic-Con is a chance to really get in touch with our fans and figure out what people are like. What's the vibe? What are people wanting now? A long time ago it was prints, then it became more sketchbooks. Lately we've had a lot of success and a lot of interest in these pins.
In the pins, yeah.
So everything's kind of changing. So we have been trying to figure out what should be our next move as far as print material, like as far as books. Certainly the pins are doing really, really well, and we're going to be doing more of that. That's Jessica's realm, and she's the one that's the goddess of pins.
Mastermind.
Yeah, and she does everything with those. I mean, she does everything. Like
basically any of the merchandise that you see is just something that I wanted, so I had it made.
Like, I think that's the way you should make art. Is you gotta make it for yourself first, and then you'll find it.
Yeah. I think really we're getting back into Rescue Sirens, and I think we're going to be more a narrative. I think we're just going to get more into our narratives, and this has given us a chance to take a break from producing materials. I mean, we still are, but get back into everything comes from like a story. We're getting back into our stories and going back to writing, which is where everything comes from. And that's what we're doing now.
Oh, speaking of stories, one thing that we are considering doing is doing a book of storyboards instead of a sketchbook.
Yeah.
We're thinking of doing a book that focuses on storyboards and Chris's sort of sequential art.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's something that I have many boxes full
Lots
of
and lots.
storyboards from Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. I've kept it all. It would be neat to do a storyboard book. It's something that it's one of those things. Like when I was interested in getting into animation, there were so many things that were mysterious to me. Storyboarding was something I didn't even know existed. I didn't understand what story was, and of course that's the thing that I fell in love with and spent all my time doing. And even as a director, that's really all I do.
You're still in story.
It's just story. I'm still in story. Call of the Wild.
You did a ton of storyboards.
Storyboarded constantly. Many sequences in Call of the Wild are shot for shot. A storyboard that I did very quickly in my room. Anyway, so we're thinking about doing some storyboard books as well.
That would be cool. Now, would you self-publish that, or would you take that to a larger publisher that could, collect all this?
Self-publish.
Probably self-publish. I mean, we always do that just because it's, for us, it's easier. It's it's faster.
Yeah.
For one thing, we get to have control over everything. So
and we, and every year
we're impatient.
Every year we talk about a compilation.
Every year we talk about a compilation. It's true.
And every year we're like, well, one more year, we'll get more stuff.
We do have plans for it. We do have plans for a compilation of Chris's sketchbooks. We're up to 8 sketchbooks now. And
we have to find a time to do it where it's like, my compilation isn't like published in the shape of a coffin, that it was like he waited too long. He waited too long.
No, and it's hard to come by a lot of the earlier volumes, even though I went back and in 2013 essentially remastered sketchbooks 1 through 5 and then did sketchbook 6. That was quite a few years ago at this point. And so it's harder to come by some of the older volumes. And the last thing we want is for scalpers and horrible resellers to make a ton of money off of Chris's fans when we could just make it available to them ourselves. That's what we try to keep things, affordable.
It's definitely the right time to do that now, because it's been a long time since you remastered those books. And the remasters were very, very popular. She upped with these old sketchbooks, and they sold out like very, very quickly.
Yeah, those are always really popular every year when you do that.
Yeah, in fact, some of them sold out so quickly that we were caught flat-footed, and like there's a couple of them that we may only have like 3 or 4 left for ourselves. We're like, wait, did we keep a couple?
Did we hold them back?
Because I'm sure we did, right? I mean, we wouldn't have just sold them all and just.
That'd be crazy.
Oops, that we're going to be going to eBay to find some for ourselves.
Between me and Vivian and Kristen, we've got them all. If you need to make photocopies for them.
But yeah, we would love to do a compilation soon. I don't know if we'll get it done in time for next year, but compilation, maybe storyboard book, working on more rescue sirens. So getting back to.
Yeah, and one of the things that you touched on, that we are now ready to start doing more conventions, because I think we're well aware that San Diego,
just in time for
San Diego is kind of its own creature. It's a very giant, weird creature, and it doesn't necessarily, because we've gone to other conventions and noticed that they all have their own personalities, and they all have their own fans, and the fans can be very different. The vibe can be very different. So we're very anxious, and this year we actually were going to do some other cons.
We're going to do like WonderCon.
Until they
were all signed up.
We're going to do a bunch this year. And then they got
I was going to do WonderCon too. And
we were going to be there. Yeah. Super stoked.
Well, I tell you what, we are going to be doing a Halloween themed driveway con here in San Diego. So if you guys got absolutely nothing going on, you guys are always welcome here in the driveway.
I think we should. You know what? I want to go.
I know. I want to go too.
I'll go down, and
we would love to have
on Halloween.
I'll dress as a mummy with the N95 mask material as my thing, just so I can go, because we really love that idea. That's a great idea.
Well, what we want to do for this one is we want to kind of make it like a haunt, like a home haunt, but also like a mini convention where you have to kind of go through a trail into the backyard. And
oh my God!
Station and. So I don't know, we're still kind of, we just started talking about it last night. So we're going to try to put something together for October. So we would
come down and scare people.
Oh my God, I would absolutely come down and scare people. I miss it so much.
Yeah, you could be a scare actor. That would be great.
It's funny because I used to do, my other jobs were all, I used to work with marine mammals at SeaWorld, and I worked at Disney for a while. So like during the day and during, 11 months of the year, I was just super chipper and nice and whatnot. And then during horror nights, I got to take out all the frustration.
To scare people.
But they liked it, so it worked out. It was a good relationship.
Nice.
For their beers out of their hands.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff tonight. Where's the best place for people to follow you online?
Instagram is
Yeah.
the best place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris Sanders Art on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
we're
And
concentrating most of our stuff.
Yeah, that's where everything will be
days.
seen first.
Yeah.
how about you, Jess?
Golly, you know, Rescue Sirens has been sort of on hiatus for a while. But I have the Rescue Sirens Instagram, which I want to start up again as soon as we start generating more material. We have a lot of stuff we haven't shared yet. We've got some great development art that I can't wait to share, but I've just needed to be able to concentrate on it and kind of be in the right headspace. But yeah, Rescue Sirens at Instagram. And then all my pins are pins of Steele on Instagram. And so that's primarily Chris's artwork. We've got, you know, some of his pinups as pins. Golly, should I tease?
Do it.
Should I tease one? Okay,
Yeah,
I have
exclusive things.
Yes,
Teaser
yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Hang on
First
one
look.
second. I'll be right back.
Surprise.
Yeah, let's do it.
Can I show them your head in the meantime?
If you want to.
Can
Didn't we have a giant box of them in here somewhere? Or do I have to go upstairs?
I? I think there's one down at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
I
Let's
think.
go upstairs.
I think.
Ooh, what do you get there?
This is Jess.
Oh, wow.
She was sculpted by Cleet Shields,
Yeah.
who is this amazing sculptor that we met in New York at the New York Comic Con. And he does these incredible sculptures. And Jess actually went to Philadelphia for a sitting, and Cleet sculpted this live. I got to sit and watch this whole thing happen. And these are some of our favorite things. And we have he was sculpting characters from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how I found out about him. We met him at New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
Wow.
And here's Tyrion.
That's gorgeous.
And I feel as though if somebody went missing, it would be more effective to show one of Cleet's sculptures as like you're looking for this person than it would be to show a photograph. He is amazing. Anyway,
He really is.
You got
And you
Cleet
can
again.
you can find Cleet at Cleet Shields Pop Sculpture
Okay.
on Instagram. That's CLETE Shields and then Pop Sculpture, SCULPTURE. He's fantastic. He's a great artist.
there's Braun.
Nice.
Yeah, he's so good. He's a great artist and a wonderful person, as is his wife Genevieve, although we still haven't met her. We've been over there a couple times. We know she exists.
So I've got the real Jess, and I've got the
Tiny.
sculpted
That's
Jess.
pretty amazing. Yeah. That is really cool.
Okay, so we were talking about pins and pinup and whatnot, and I decided to get really fancy. And instead of doing like little 2-inch pins, I hear you, Buck.
Thank
You
you.
went out. Here's a pin on pin
Oh, wow. That's
of
cool.
Koi Girl, one of Chris's most popular illustrations. You can see it's layered.
It's a massive 3.5 inches. What is
No,
it?
it's like 4.25 inches.
4.25 inches.
from tail tip
How
to.
many holders does that take in the back? Is that 2?
It only has 2.
Okay, good.
It'll stay up with 2.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's pretty
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that's very cool.
So she'll be going up before long.
All right, guys. Well, I think that covers it. And hopefully we get to see you in the October season. When we're
Yes.
We'll be there.
Yes.
We will.
We're missing our one opportunity to be social every year. So we'll definitely be there in October.
All right. Well, lots of love to you guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
inviting
so
us.
much. This was so much fun.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
great. You gave us a little bit of Comic-Con.
Right. That's
In
what
our
it's all
heart.
about, trying to keep it rolling.
Oh,
Bye, guys.